we opened our own company. It was at the same time that EPAD was becoming ATP. And the new laws stated that all guides guiding in Panama had to be certified. But there was no a entity in Panama that could do certifications. And I came from a world working on expeditions where all the guys were naturalist guides. But we have kind of learned, I like to say, like a cat upside down, just defending yourself on your own. There was no school of guiding in Panama, so you
No,
learn by
it was
punches.
It was a sink or swim.
Sink or swim.
They threw you in, and either you had it or you didn't. But at the time, like he was saying, the guides were being required to register themselves and have this certificate, but there was no such thing.
And then we got together. It was Annie Young from today what is APSO, the National
Panama's Association for Sustainable Tourism.
Exactly. Fundación Avifauna, which is what runs the Panama Rainforest Discovery Center. Rick Morales, a co-worker of mine, Benny Wilson, and ourselves. We got together and we put together a training program. We got the funds and run the first training program for general guides in Panama. But even though it was a general guide, it had a huge input in nature because that was our background. And we always thought, okay, you have to have that background. And then we decided that for our company, any guide that worked for us had to have that type of training. That had to be what we call a certified naturalist interpretive guide. And then the interpretation part comes from our relation with the National Association for Interpreters out of the US, 9, which I was trained for. And as a guide, that changed my career. It teach me that it's not just giving names and dates. It's connecting the visitors with the resource, what they're seeing, making that meaningful connection. So we created the program and we decided that for all our guides, we will do that training. Any guy working for us was going to do that certification training, that type of training. As we start creating the trainings, we realized that running a training program, it can be costly. And even though we didn't want to charge our guides for that, it was very expensive. So what we decided was to run the workshops, trainings, but open it to other guides that work for other companies. And they will pay a minimum fee, just kind of like cover the cost, and they will help us cover the cost of the trainings. And that's how eventually we turned into trainings and we opened the Naturalist Guide. Mm-hmm. That became the Naturalist Guide Academy. Mm-hmm. And we created a training program that starts from general guide. Then after that, then you do the certification for naturalist, which is what we're turning now is into Guía Naturalista and protected areas, Guía Naturalista y Áreas Protegidas, which is the national park system. Rick Morales, Ben Wilson, myself, we've been working training for a long time, and we also end up doing the training for other entities. And we said, you know what, if we put together the programs, we put together the study plans, we do the training ourselves, why not do ourselves create the entity that does training? And that's how Naturalist Guide Academy, which is part of Isthmian Adventures, was created. Look into that part of the training. So how do you become a certified interpretive guide? Well, you take a training that takes, look initially at 3 pillars. Knowledge, which is all those names and dates and numbers that the guys throw out at guests. Interpretation, how to do that, interpretation of those resources, that information in a meaningful way that connects with the clients. And then leadership, because you can have all the knowledge in the world, you can be a good interpreter, but when things go wrong, which usually in Panama, there's always something that goes wrong, you don't know how to deal with it, and you just throw away the towel and run away and blame someone else, and you're not a good guide. So based on those 3 pillars, we start with general guides, and then you work your way up to the other trainings. Eventually, a certified naturalist interpretive guide.
And we've been working closely with the ATP, with the NADE, with all the other entities for education here, because we're not authorized to actually certify anybody, but we can do the education. And then another entity comes in with the government to actually do the certifications.
So last year with the COVID, we did a training for general guides nationwide. And then during the pandemic, we put together was 10 manuals, over 60 videos, and it's partial virtual, but then we did the evaluation on site. So I had to go to Panama City, to Old Valle, to Chiriquí, all over. This year, we're looking at doing 2 trainings, General Guide and the Naturalist. We're going to be doing 60 guides of General Guides and about 25 Naturalist Guides for the ATP this year.
This has been our pivot since tourism is non-existent. This is what we can do with our knowledge in the meantime, as the industry recovers. And when it does, one thing that's great about the Naturalist Guide is we have our hands in the pie of all the different guides and the training, so we can pick out this guy from this province and this girl over here and give them a little extra boost. We can work with them so that we know we have great guides in every region, which is something we haven't been able to rely on in the past.
The other thing is that we're also doing some community tourism trainings. We're working with some communities, and this is in Panama, helping communities to develop tourism. And what that gives us is access to those little jewels out there that nobody visits, nobody knows about, but that has a huge potential. And because we're getting there from the beginning, then we can start helping them produce a product that is complete, that has interpretation planning, the risk management plan, and all those little details that make a difference when you provide a product.
I think a lot of people don't understand what the meaning of the word product. When we refer to a product, you can have a resource like a waterfall or a finca or culture, but that's not a product. The product is the end, where you've considered all the points: transportation, food, risk management, your interpretation, every single thing. That's the end product. So that's a lot of the education that we're doing with these communities, is getting them to change their mindset between having a resource and having a finished product that they can actually sell.
Now, I can give you an example. Have you heard of La Silampa in Veraguas? It's a very famous little waterfall in the middle of a pasture out there. It's beautiful, yes. Turquoise blue. When start showing up in social media, all of a sudden you have this input of people coming in, but there was no infrastructure, there was no plan to receive those visitors, and that started causing problems. Locals were not happy with people leaving trash behind, going through their properties without permission, and not leaving any income behind to the communities. But you cannot blame the visitors for that. You cannot blame neither the communities. I think it's something that us that have some experience working with tourism have to help those communities that want to be involved, but they don't know how, to be able to prepare to do receive visitors in a proper way, and a safe way.
A sustainable way.
A sustainable way, exactly. Anyone that wants to become a registered guide with the Panamanian Tourism Authority, the ATP, if you are a foreigner in this case, you have to have 5 years of residency in Panama. If you have been living here legally resident for 5 years, then you can apply to become a guide in Panama. If you're a Panamanian, that requirement is not involved. Then you have to have also register yourself with the state, like opening a business. You say, okay, I'm gonna be doing guiding, so you are paying taxes. And then you have to either take a test, a knowledge test, or you can take one training, any workshop that's going on that's accepted by the ATP, and then you get the certification. But you have to, as if you're a foreigner moving into Panama, you have to have at least 5 years living here in Panama as a legal resident.
So you can, for example, if you're at Miraflores or one of the touristic sites, you can tell who is a certified guide and who's not, because they will actually be wearing a badge. And each badge has a ranking on it, I guess. So if you're a generalized guide, you have a mark on your badge. If you're an expert guide in birding, you have extra marks on your badge. So it's sort of a, ranking system. But you can tell now, and you're not allowed to enter with tourists to a lot of the different sites.
The way it's being filtered right now, like let's say Miraflores Locks, which is the most visited place in Panama. a guide that comes with his ID, that means that he's registered with the authority of tourism of Panama, he only has to show that ID and he gets free pass. If you are a guy that's not registered, you're gonna have to pay a ticket like any other person and just enter with the rest of the guests. And that the guests can tell that. And also, what they're trying to do is push those tour companies that are using guides that are not registered to think about, okay, if I use this guide that's not registered, it's gonna cost me more instead if I use one that's registered. Now, having said that, in Panama, we have amazing guides with a lot of experience that have not registered yet with the ATP. It is a process that's going on. We have foreigners in Panama doing guiding that are amazing. They're really good. They know the country better than many Panamanians. So to me personally, being a Panamanian or a foreigner doesn't tell me you're a good guy or not. It tells me how much have you fell in love with this country, how much have you pushed yourself to learn the work, the history, the culture of Panama, and how much love to show that to the guests you have. That to me makes a good guide.
Yeah. As far as foreign guides, I think if you're gringo or gringa, no matter what country, if you have light skin, sometimes I felt this, that the guests may feel like they're getting a little bit cheated because they don't have a local, even though my knowledge could be far better than the local Panamanian standing next to me. They have this perception that, oh, I didn't get a local guide. I had a nice guide and they were great and they were knowledgeable, but they weren't Panamanian. But it's funny because Venezuelans and Colombians, and they, people don't really know. If you're Latino, then it's fine. But if you've got a little bit of a white skin, then yeah, I felt a little.
I think,
bit.
Yeah, but like I said, we have on our company. There's 2 Venezuelans that work. They were born in Venezuela. They have lived here all their lives, and they're some of the best guys that we have. And during the trainings, I have known German guys that are amazing. They're really good. They don't work with us because we don't have that market. We attend any German that comes to our company asking for a tour, but that's not a market that we pitch or move groups through, as there are companies that specialize just in German guests. But I mean, that's not, to me, that's not a difference between your nationality.
No.
But legally, yes, you have to be 5 years resident in Panama.